V0.3 Comedy of Errors or the Greatest RPG Hybrid? Disclaimer. Warning. Rule 196 is X-rated in that to calculate L, use X equals C2 over 10 to the power of 2, which is for mature audience only, at or above age of 20, but most 90% of this RPG is for all ages. Though maybe not Rule 193, which is not meant to be read by kids, and Rule 187 explains homosexuality mathematically using modifier G at 11. 2. Disclaimer. Other disclaimers. My thanks to the host Philippe.Tremeur at wannado.forreal, incredible, for the free hosting of my free RPG hybrid. But 10% of this RPG is not suitable for children, and any similarity, i.e., between my RPG and that or any other role-playing game is purely by coincidence and a coincidental. This is a science fiction RPG. It's mostly fiction. Also, there is no intention to offend any race or gender. It's mostly fiction. And there is no intention to offend any race or and gender or and workings of science or and technology. Most of my RPG is science fiction. Again, this role-playing game is free, and I attempt to make monthly updates to keep it as accurate as possible, by which I mean to weed out typos and any errors in my equations. But 10% of my RPG is not suitable for children. But I may not be able to make too many updates in the future if the host decides to retire. But for the moment, he's willing to allow me to make monthly updates. And so the rules continue to expand as I think of more rules, equations, and explanations to add to my slowly growing RPG. A considerable amount of characters and small amounts of material for comparison and contrast purposes on these pages are trademark and or copyright or of their respective owners and do not have their permission to use the name of their characters used in their respective RPGs, as these characters are used for only comparison and contrast for my game mechanics of their respective RPG versus my homebrew RPG system hybrid. The use of their characters, disclaimer, continue from above, is not for personal profit and is made free in format, including this reading of this webpage. In any format that uses their copyrighted characters, such as those of MU, DC, and Hero, as long as I've not requested their permission to use their characters, any format of my RPG that uses their characters without their permission will remain free, including reading of this webpage, assuming that the host hosting my free RPG doesn't start charging people to read it. Not that anyone would be interested in reading my RPG hybrid, which is unpopular due to it being mostly diceless, as there is only one rule regarding the use of dice. There's no there, whatever. That being to get 2/3 or greater for success at a particular unit of magnitude for DP for character creation and for success of LS or and PL for conflict resolution. I wanted to publish a hard copy of this RPG in 2005 or in 2010 and calling it my first edition of my RPG 0.1, which increments of 0.1 for every other edition that gets published, but I'm not sure if it's feasible to publish my RPG, as there doesn't seem to be any real demand for it, except a passing interest, as I'm not sure if people would pay dollars for a copy of my RPG hybrid core rules. Not referring to this website as this RPG in its current version and format is free, but I was just thinking about a publishable hard copy of it without any reference to any copyrighted characters or and comparison and contrast with any other gaming materials, as I might need their permission if I wanted to publish a hard copy or something that talked about gaming mechanics and characters of other RPGs that I want to compare with my homebrew RPG hybrid. But not sure if the other gaming companies would ever give me permission to discuss their characters using the title of my RPG, and considering that my RPG is a derivative of my RPG is not a derivative, or maybe it is, not sure, as it could just a coincidence that my RPG is similar in many respects to other RPGs, not sure, or maybe I'm just a lot of good ideas, disclaimer, continue from above. That's some of the mechanics, by coincidence, is similar to those used by authors of other RPGs, even though it uses only one major equation and its countless different manifestations in format. Equation format. Not sure if that's original or derivative. Not sure if it's possible to copyright something that might or maybe be a derivative work of others. Though I'm not sure if my homebrew RPG hybrid is a derivative work of or an original, as there are many similarities with other RPGs, maybe by pure coincidence. Maybe I just got a lot of good ideas that's also used by other authors. Maybe, but one thing is sure, that my RPG hybrid is based on one equation, x to the power of log 10 of x, where x is point distribution and magnitude, and not to be confused with the variable x in Rule 196, which is an x-rated rule. But x, point distribution and magnitude, for point total is a variable x that is used differently than in Rule 196 than the founding equation for hybrid, that being x to the power of log x, which is mainly used for point distribution and magnitude for total points. So if I don't get permission or consent to use characters of their respective owners, I probably won't ever have the chance to publish this in hard copy format, or charge people for reading it, and people won't be able to buy my RPG. Then it will have to remain forever free. But not that it's a bad idea to keep it free, but it would be nice to make a living out of publishing an RPG. But what gaming company would actually publish my RPG? This webpage for my free hybrid RPG is relatively new. My RPG will remain free, maybe forever, until I feel the rules are complete. But it will take unknown amount of years to complete all the rules. So remain free quite a amount of years. But anything posted about my RPG by me or on or at this webpage, hosted for free, by the host of this webpage, will remain free for all times, forever free for this webpage and this URL, assuming the host hosting my free RPG for free doesn't at a later time charging people to read it, though I doubt very much that anyone would actually pay to. Disclaimer, continue from above. Read hybrid, which seems to be unpopular since most people do not like non-random RPGs, since my free RPG is mostly diceless, which is not popular in gaming, where most prefer to use dice to determine conflict resolution, but there is positive side or aspect to using dices, and the only reason that I haven't included much rules other than just 2 rules on using dice, rule number 17 and number 188, and why is that I haven't yet mastered the art of using dice because of my lack skills in probability and statistics, or my lack of belief in the discipline of chance, and I'm just not that very good when it comes to probability and statistics, since I have tendency to believe in the same concept that's stated by Einstein that says God does not play dice with the universe. But I could be mistaken, since my math skills doesn't reach very far beyond basic calculus, so I could be wrong in my basic assumptions, but it's possible that I could be correct or right about my basic assumptions, even that my math skills doesn't reach beyond basic calculus. as it's always better to keep things simple, as the current discovery that human DNA may use something similar to fractals, and the so-called junk DNA may not be junk DNA, since it's beginning to show that the so-called junk DNA may have some purpose, but that we just don't know about it yet. Considering we just recently mapped the human DNA, a similar analogy could be used with determinism versus probability, except for any hard copy I may at some future time wish to publish my core rules, at which time I will remove and delete out and edit any copyright characters and any other material that is more than just comparison and contrast, but most all copyrighted material on this webpage is used for comparison in contrast with my free RPG hybrid, but is posted here for purpose of comparison and contrast between my RPG and other RPGs. Oh god, the end of sentence. They are used here without permission for personal game use only and are not for profit, as I'll state again that my RPG is, disclaimer, continue from above, free for the next unknown amount of years, which is how long it will take to complete the most of my rules for my RPG, at which time any hard copy of my core rules that's published by me, if I ever attempt to publish it, and if it ever gets published, will take out and remove, delete any copyrighted characters such as the DC and MU characters used as examples. But there is no intention nor any intentional attempt to violate anyone's copyrights. This RPG is mostly This RPG is mostly played with only one stat, that being Psyche, and its various manifestations. But my goal to have a publishable hard copy of the core rules sometime in 2005 or 2010, and if it ever gets published, which I doubt, then I call the first edition of these core rules version 0.1. Then each future updates of V0.1 would grow in increments of 0.05 or 0.1 to my second edition of these core rules. Updated version of 0.1 would be called version V0.2 in 2010 or 2020, referring to update of the publishable hard copy of the core rules. V.1, 5, 10, or 15 years from now. If some gaming company wants to publish a revised version of my core rules in hard copy format with me getting possible royalties, then great. But I was thinking of publishing my first edition followed by an update every 5, 10, or 15 years. But don't be surprised if this RPG never gets beyond this webpage in its free format, especially if my RPG gets trolled. What the fuck is he talking about? Especially if my RPG gets trolled, it might not get published. But there is only 1% chance of this RPG getting published. But before I begin my free homebrew RPG system hybrid, there is one more disclaimer that being C does not stand for channeling, as it's referred to as infusion, but its purpose, its name, is same as channeling, but the variable C comes from the 86 MUTCR RPG, which has only one unit, that being class, which was insufficient, so I came with many different units. Oh god. For example, Doctor Doom in the 86 MUTCR RPG has 50 Reason, Intuition, and Psyche in the 86 MUTCR RPG roster, but this 50 actually means 100 C1 DP by 100 over log 10 of 100. Disclaimer! Continue from above. Equals 100 over 2 equals 50 reason, intuition, and psyche. Or you can separate the 20 and 99 in the character doom underscore 2099 to get 20 C1DP for Doombot and 99 C1DP for Doctor Doom. But this is applied to Doombot and Doctor Doom classic version, not referring to Doom underscore 2099, who would be at PR, power rating, that of Dr. Destroyer, and at 120 C2DP at X 120 C2DP Dr. Destroyer of Hero RPG, but X in hybrid is at 120, while X in MUTCR RPG is at 150. But this above psyche equation is one of several different psyche equations. Rule number 5 that can be delivered from the 86 MUTCR crossed and mixed with one step with D20 and then GURPS. But I wouldn't call it mixed, but rather skim through their material and notice the pattern develop between the point distribution of various different RPGs, giving me one universal equation, that being x to the power of log x, where this is, some number at some unit of magnitude and point distribution and its various and countless manifestations. Haven't yet found the use for ln form of this equation, maybe later. But the weird thing is that this pattern of quantum mechanics is similar to that of pattern of Amber Dice's RPG, where the pattern is similar to the Doctor Who storyline of being time sensitive. For the concept of a quantum barrier that would be referred to as pattern in Amber Dice's RPG, which is where I got the idea from Doctor Who's storyline regarding episodes for Time Lords being time sensitive for a concept similar to, but not from, the pattern of Amber Dice's RPG. But my second sources was the quantum barrier concept from DC RPG and its character Captain underscore Adam, who has access to the quantum barrier. But doesn't every mutant? But the whole idea being hybrid RPG began with my reading of DC Darkseid futile attempt at coming up with the anti-life equation was, it seemed to me, was staring at me in the face, that being it was so simple. Not sure why Darkseid with his genius couldn't come up with the anti-life equation. The equation which at its core was simply a force field. Disclaimer! Continue from above. Equation used by Doctor Who in one of the episodes against his greatest nemesis. The guy stuck inside a singularity but later managed to escape, but couldn't exist in normal space for too long. I've only been recording for 20 minutes. Or for too extended period of time, like a fish out of water, as his body was composed of antimatter, not referring to Devros, creator of the Daleks, which could be applied to just about anything, including antimatter, which is what DC later referred the anti-life equation to as. Darkseid was having trouble coming up with the anti-life equation, so I assume DC gave an easier form of anti-life equation to Darkseid, that being antimatter, rather than its more elementary form, that being the force of field equation, which can be used to generate antimatter with my universal equation, and it's compatible with the 86MU TCR RPG and core concept compatible with our rifts regarding lines of force. An interesting concept that I myself have been working on to implement in for my RPG before I ever heard of anything. Before I ever heard anything about Rift's RPG, which led to similarities between my RPG hybrid. I called my RPG hybrid name of my RPG because of my interest in genetics and physics and creating an RPG system that would attempt to use basic laws of physics, but for a science fiction setting and stretch those laws of physics to its limits and beyond, to put those common sense laws into a hybrid system like a bowl of soup. And because of the similarities, not because I took ideas from other RPGs, as I didn't take any ideas from anyone, but attempt to come up with a truly universal RPG, and only use something that was found to be common among all RPGs, that being various manifestations of x to the power of log 10 of x for total points. And as I already had such ideas being brewing in my mind at the time I picked up the various different RPGs and read them, and mechanics in and of other RPGs, such as Fusion, that claims it's using the C variable for channeling, but Fusion's total points varies between C2 and C3, while disclaimer, continue from above, total what happened? Yeah, total points for hero varies between IQ and C3, where IQ is based on 10 to the power 10 times C1 and 100 times log 10 of C3, where both and at default. But MU Tony Stark at 40 reason would not have or be at C1 but at 80 C2 by C2 over 2 equals Psyche, or 80 over 2 equals 40 reason. This RPG hybrid is based on one stat, Psyche, with two main manifestations, that being LS, lifespan, and PL, power level. These two core manifestations of Psyche help create the core rules of four other core rules. Also, hybrid RPG also uses mechanics similar to that of the Rift's RPB. There are similarities, but based on my equation for force fields by rule number 7, which is not completely accurate, but gets the job done, but that being to help create rules, including reinforce the IQ equation of rule number 8. Final disclaimer is that in the 86MU TCR RPG, light speed velocity is at class 1000 for spaceships, but doesn't indicate at what size and mass of spaceship. Is this thing gonna end anytime soon? Which would be comparable to 1000 C2PL for 681.472 PL for velocity, plus 318.528 C2PL for size and mass by rule number 155. So because of this, light speed velocity for spaceship is close to at C2 PL, or at 520 C2PL and add ZC2PL in my homebrew RPG system hybrid, where where C1PL can be reduced to a minimum of 36.63 C1PL for light speed velocity. Add 279 C2PL by 36.63 to the power of log 10 of 36.63 equals 279 C2PL, which is close to at Y 250 C2PL for a small spaceship. These numbers are very compatible with the Star Wars universe. So, the point being, my RPG is similar, but not exactly the same, and the similarities are a complete coincidence, sort of like parallel thinking, as my homebrew RPG system is based on rate of evolution of modern technology between 1900 and 2000 AD, where maximum C2PL for technology by 2000 AD will be at 100 C2PL, though maximum C2PL even for US military is at 2 over 3 this amount at 66.66 C2PL. The major evolution of difference between 86 MUTCR RPG and hybrid is the 5 major units CA, C1, C2, C3, and C4 of magnitude of and 4-point distribution, which makes hybrid the best and, disclaimer, continue from above, the easiest and most compatible RPG in the world. But way better and more specific than the 86 MUTCR RPG. These numbers for minimum C2PL for light speed velocity can further be reduced to X120 C2PL, or to be more exact, at 139 C2PL. Now, hybrid, the greatest RPG in existence, just below. Version V, wait no, 2 hybrid, the 145-page RPG. Version V0.3, 30% complete. Number of pages, 145. Number of rules, 203. Number of equations, 203. Comedy of Errors, or the greatest RPG hybrid? Disclaimer. Warning. Rule 196 is X-rated. Is that to calculate L, use X equals C2 over 10 to the power of 2, which is for mature audience only, at or above age of 20. But most 90% of this RPG is for all ages, though maybe not Rule 193, which is not meant to be read by kids, and as Rule 187 explains homosexuality mathematically, using modifier G at 11. Font size, 14 at bold for the most part. Font type, Courier New. I just love this new font. Note, the previous V0.3 was really V0.15 at 15% complete. Currently, for the web page version, look at Rule 0, version V0.1 for 2001, V0.2 for 2002, V0.3 for 2003. So version V0.3 in 2002 was really V0.15 at 15%, V4 for 2004, and so on. Required tool, a calculator with log10 function. Example 1. For negative energy generated by laws of Nikola Tesla, including free energy, such as cold fusion, look at Rule 191, which is a combination of Rule number 7 for a field equation and Rule number 8, IQ equation. For example 2, for space travel, check out rule number 10, number 30, number 95, number 135, number 155, number 178, number 190, and number 192. For rule 135, modifier m equals r, and for rule 190, modifier m equals r over 3. Use minimum cost of x C2PL for warp or and hyperspace travel. Use minimum cost of y C2PL to see into or and communicate to another in an alternate dimension, and use z C2PL to travel to or into an alternate dimension. Mutants should replace PL with DP since PL at XC2, YC2, or and ZC2 is for nanotechnology for and at minimum cost. By nanotechnology, I mean TL objects such as spaceships or space satellite to have length, diameter, or radius of less than 1 meter at minimum cost for teleportation at X120, C2PL, LC2 cost increases. Example 3. For greatest military equation for both military and non-military applications, use Rule 7. Example 4. For combat in any and including low-level campaigns, use Rule 188, which is more specific than Rule 17, but Rule 188 and number 17 contradict each other. Example 5. The Comet Empire at 20 CADP or 21 CADP equals 49.28 C1 dp or 58.01 C1 dp by 20 to the power of log 10 of 20 equals 49.28 and 21. Thanks for watching.